Welcome to the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast. Pull up a chair and kick up your feet as you get ready to enjoy some of the industry's most entertaining and actionable Dynasty content on the planet. We're talking veterans, rookies, sleepers, and oh yeah, you know the crew has those dad jokes ready for you. So let's not wait any longer and bring on the host or some combination of Doug and Tyler.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Happy Hour. It's a milestone episode for Tyler and I, and a shout out to all our co-hosts of the past. There's been a few, there's been a handful. There's been some good, there's been some bad, but we love all of them for joining us during the show. Even before my time, I feel like I've been around forever now. And Tyler's been here since day one. So he is literally, his middle name is Forever. But it is episode number 400 of the Dynasty Happy Hour podcast. Tyler, how do you feel?
Crazy. I didn't think it'd get here. Lot of different emotions. I was trying to think back of when you joined, and I want to say it was like 120 to 140, maybe 150.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah, like it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah, you recruited me, and I haven't gone away yet. So
that's true. Yeah, just like the small ant problem we have in our house, we also have a Doug problem in Dynasty Happy Hour house.
I'm a large ant, though.
He just won't leave.
Hey, your favorite ant in Minnesota is Anthony Edwards, though. So, you know.
So I don't watch basketball. I haven't watched basketball since, the Trace McGrady days. And, man, I watched that game, and it was intense. Like, it was nuts. And there hasn't been this much hype in Minnesota in a long time. So for all you guys bashing Minnesota, like, oh, act like you've won and stuff, like, we haven't. So we can't act like we've won. Like, Doug, you guys had the Patriots. We've had nothing since 91, the Twins. So just let us have this moment for a little bit.
I agree with that. And you know what? I hate auctions sometimes because when you're like 15 minutes from winning a player and then you're like, oh, I think I might get him today. No, I didn't get him.
AKA Doug got bid up on Brock Bowers, everybody.
I am annoyed. That's all right. I'll win him. I've got the money. He's really the only target I have. What I'm trying to do, it's a start 2 tight end league, tight end premium. So tight ends are uber valuable. I have Sam Laporta. My dream on this roster is to pair him with Brock Bowers and dominate the landscape for you.
Yeah. So. I mean, we talked about it the other day about tight ends and tight end premium. If you can start 2 and they're producing over 10 points, like, I'll take that over a wide receiver 3 or 4 every day. Like, the premium you get out of those guys is great. So yeah, Bowers on that team will definitely dominate. And Doug, you and I got Laporta on a team with Kyle Pitts, and that was our dream. Like, hey, we could just dominate at the tight end position for years with these two and probably get 20 to 45 points every week. It's almost 100%. Like super flex.
Yeah, if there's anything that taught me that was when Scott Fish was running the Capitalist Pigs 2 leagues, and if you had good tight ends, you could start like 3 or 4 a week. It was bonkers the amount of points that they would potentially score.
Shout out to John Bosch, another old co-host.
Yeah.
John Bosch, I remember in one of the leagues, he had like 3 to 4 really, really high-end tight ends and like 1 good starting quarterback, maybe 2 decent running backs, but that was about it. And he would always compete.
Yeah, Scott was the same way. He had like Kelsey, Hawkinson, and like Andrews, I think, for a while, and he was scoring a ton of points. So, we're going to talk more about rookies a little bit later. We're going to go over a couple of our favorite rookie drafts from a couple leagues that we're in to give you kind of a draft recap on how that worked out. And we're going to talk ownership today. Or rostership rather. Sorry, I don't want to get canceled.
Whoa, it's 2024,
Whoa.
Doug.
Oh no, we're gonna talk.
Looks like we're finding a new co-host.
Yeah, I got canceled on episode 400. So we're gonna talk about rostership today. We've got a handful. I've got all my rookie drafts done except for I've got a current auction which I spoke of before, and then Tyler and I have one more auction left in rookie season, and then we are officially done. But we're gonna give you the guys that we have the most, maybe give you some guys that we wish we had. There's a couple players that I don't have any of that I'm like, man, I just missed them by a pick or 2 or, a budget issue. So we'll give you some of those guys too. But before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Trophy Smack. the longest standing sponsor on the Dynasty Happy Hour. Not all 400 episodes. That would be amazing. But shout out to them. Use code DHHRING when you buy a trophy or a belt, and you get a free $60 championship ring with your order today. They've got everything. They've got draft boards, which I think they're the best in the business. They've nailed the draft board. It's so much fun. Not a single player missing last year at Scott Fishbowl. Fun stickers, so you can smack talk if you're a sticker bitch like I am most of the time, because I'm really good at it, not because I'm a bitch. I'm just really good. I'm organized, and I can multitask. I don't get distracted when people are yelling at me to put up a sticker. I'm already on it, and I'm like, hey, who's next? Let's go. I keep
that
it
is
tight.
why I don't do stickers.
Yeah, I keep it tight. I keep it moving. So check out their draft boards as well. But again, code DHHRING with a trophy or a. All right, let's start this thing with some ownership stuff. I don't
rostership stuff.
Sorry, Freudian slip, if you will. Tyler has all the data in front of him. For some reason, I was going to use Dynasty Planet, and it doesn't have 2024, so I'm just going to kind of freeform it. I know who I have in leagues, but I'm going to give you some guys that I wish I had that I just didn't end up with any because of the way my draft position was or just the way the draft board fell. So far, I don't have any Brock Bowers, and it's not that I didn't want him. I thought there was a dip for him in a couple of leagues where he went in the like 107, 108 range. And unfortunately, in those leagues, I either traded up, not to get Bowers, but to get more elite guys like Harrison and Neighbors, which I did in the league we're going to talk about in a little bit. But Bowers was never on the board for me, really. It was between him and Roma Dunze in one league. I could have paired Bowers and Laporta in a league, tight end premium, but I chose to go with Odunze instead because that was my only rostership of Odunze. So at least I have one. I found myself really diversifying because this class is so big that I'm not heavy on any one guy, really. It's like I've got Brian Thomas here. I've got Xavier Worthy here. I've got Adonai Mitchell in a spot. I've got Jonathan Brooks in a couple spots. But I'm not overly heavy on anyone. Even some of the late round guys, there's guys that I like, but there's no such thing as a sleeper anymore, guys. Like, there's too much content out there between YouTube and X and all these other things. Like, guys like Tyrone Tracy in years past might have slipped through the cracks. Those guys don't slip through the cracks anymore. Smart people are on these guys. So you have to get really, really granular with a guy that you're like, ooh, here's a guy. Even Jordan Travis, Tyler and I talked about it. Like, I was like, I like him, I loved him at Florida State. He lands on the Jets. And I'm like, oh, I could probably get him in the 5th round of Superflex leagues. Nope. He's going in the 4th. He's going in the mid to late 4th because, as we've talked about before, this draft class, as much as we're like, we love this draft class, it's deceptively not as deep as you thought it was. Once you get into the late 3rd, early 4th, you're like, I guess I'll go with this guy who doesn't have draft capital and has a weird profile, but okay. So Tyler, why don't you give us some of your rostership data?
All right. I'll give you a couple of the ones I wish I had more. Blake Corum, I don't have any. And with the recent news of Kyron Williams having foot issues, Rex Ryan, you could definitely be there to help. But Blake Corum is somebody that I really liked in the pre-draft process, but I actually ended up with none because he's going a little earlier than I wanted. And I just don't like running backs in the mid-second, per se. Like, I'd rather take a shot at these receivers that I have more shares of. Somebody else I wish, Drake May. I honestly don't think I have any Drake May, and I love Drake May.
I think he's one of my heaviest rostership players. I think I have Drake May in 3 spots.
Yeah, the Drake May is one that I wish I had more of because I absolutely love him. Everything from camp looks like he's, all that early stuff like, oh, he's not a true leader. He's quiet. Everything I've seen from videos from the Patriots is like, this dude's talking to everybody. He's loving it out there.
There was pictures of him and Tom Brady.
Father and son. So yeah, it's
much.
I wish I had more of him. Let me see. I have one Marv. I have 2 Neighbors. But let's go over that. My most rostered is Jalen Wright. I traded up into the mid to late 2nd to go snag him up. And Brock Bowers, I don't have any. I drafted one, then I traded him for what turned out to be like
package.
2 early 2nds and then 2 early 3rds, which I traded those 2 early 3rds to get into the late 2nd to get a higher tier player. So I didn't mind it, but yeah, it sucks that Bowers, I do not roster any of because once again, he's still gonna be special. But yeah, Jalen Wright is my most rostered rookie. He was one of my players that I wanted to have a higher share of because, like we talked about this offseason, he is literally Raheem Mostert built better, and we're gonna sit here and trust a 32-year-old running back. In a UDPL draft, we'll talk about it, but I got him. I traded back in because I needed running back. And right now I'm thinking to myself, oh, I should trade for running back because I have Eckler and, that's it. But then I think to myself, one of these guys going to pop up if it's Keaton Mitchell. But Jalen Wright, I think, is the most obvious one to pop up because A-Chain isn't a picture of health, and Mostert, of course, is older than us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he's one of my most. Jalen McMillan is another one of my guys. I have him in 4 leagues. Taj Washington, I snagged him off a lot of free agent wires. I got him in 4. Let me scroll down. This is
going
great.
down.
Let's see. Will Shipley, I have in 3 leagues.
I do not have any Will Shipley.
He was another late drafted guy. And for me, I think Barkley's getting everything. I think they paid him, but there is going to be a time when he's going to need a little break and maybe even has a little slight injury. I mean, Barkley's not the picture of health, but I think Will Shipley's skill set for this offense, I think he is going to be what we wish Gainwell would have been if he does get on the field. I like his skill set. Ricky Pearsall, I have in 3 leagues. I traded up to 207 in both listener leagues to go snag him, and I drafted him at the same time. Like I was on the clock at the same time.
That's pretty good. That's where I would start to be interested in, like in that 206, 207.
Yes. Jared Wiley, I have in 3 leagues. I think he is one of those guys that is one of the better stashes. Jalen Coker. I have him in 3
Joe
leagues.
Cocker?
Yeah, Joe Cocker. I heard from Cecil Lammy, and if you guys don't listen to the Audible and the after draft, like free agent people, they said this guy could be the best receiver on the team in like a year because he's he's like 6'1", 210. He's a good route runner, just a smaller school. And they all thought he was probably going to be like a 5th round pick. So, when Cecil and Sig say something, I definitely listen because they're one of my favorite podcasts to listen to, and very, very smart fellas over there.
Yep.
I think the rest are mainly like 1 or 2.
Do you have Eric All in some spots?
I have Eric All. I'm getting there. God, I can't find anything. Can't see any. It's too early, guys.
Mess.
It's too early. I have Jermaine Burton in 2, Malik Neighbors in 2, Malik Washington in 2, Keon Coleman in 2. We'll talk about him in the UDPL draft and my difficult decision I had in that draft. I mean, Doug, you should read the text from Doug. It was like, should I go this guy? All right, it was my true ADHD. It was like, I think I'm going to go here. Yeah. You know what? I think I'm going to go here. And it literally, I took the one player I did not mention. So
it's a little spastic.
Rasheen Ali, I have 2. Eric All 2. Jatavian Sanders, Doug and I, we took him in Trade Addicts. We, Doug and I, if you guys co-own a team, it's a good idea. Have a bunch of late picks and just go back and forth. Like, hey, you take this pick, I'll take this pick.
I'll take the next one. Yeah,
it's a great strategy, and you know what's fun is you can always brag about which one hits.
That is very true.
And Audric Esme, I have 2. I'm actually looking to trade for Audric Esme right now.
The Incredible Hulk, I've heard, is his name.
He's a bowling ball. He is massive. But no, I think he could be the guy that comes to the top of that backfield. Cody Schrader, I got in 2 leagues. I think he's a great waiver wire guy because everybody's on Garendo. But, I mean, Schrader's the guy who dominated in the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. So, Anthony Gould, I have him in 2 leagues. And then, the rest are 1. Like I said, I got 1 of Marv, 1 of Jane Daniels, which we'll talk about in the UDPL draft. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I tried to get 1 of everybody, but unfortunately, Drake May and Brock Bowers, 2 of my favorite prospects.
They eluded you.
I don't have.
Yeah, I was able to get May in 3 leagues, and I was pretty happy with that. It was, one of them was just a pure luxury pick because he fell to me at the 108 in a league that we're going to talk about, and I was like, how can I not take him here? Because it's like I needed that younger developmental quarterback on my roster, so it was a perfect fit. Other quarterbacks, I've got my first share of Caleb in my home dynasty league. I drafted him. It's a single QB, but it is 6-point touchdowns. And I drafted him at the 109. I was hoping and praying he would fall to me.
Slam dunk.
Similar situation. My only quarterbacks on the roster at the time that are starting are Tua Tagovailoa and Will Levis. This auction only had Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers, and Goff available. And then when I looked at it and I was like, you know what? The guys with the most money all need quarterback. Like all these guys are going to go for a silly amount of money. Let me take Caleb. And then I traded Will Levis. Because I drafted Bo Nix at the 209, and then I traded Levis away for the 306 and Alvin Kamara as a win now piece. Used that 306 to shore up my linebacking core. I took the rookie from Green Bay, Edgerrin Cooper, and then I traded a late 5th round pick for Deshaun Watson and took his salary on for this year. So I made a lot of moves in that league. I'm still competitive. I've done really well in that league. I've made the finals 7 out of the last 8 years. And this is kind of like my last all-in push. I'm losing McCaffrey at the end of the year, Godwin, Connor, Kamara. Like it's going to get a wee ugly at the end of this year. So, I'm like, you know what? I'm all in. Let's try and win it one more time. Bring the band back together and add some new bandmates. But yeah, Jaden Daniels, I don't have any of. JJ McCarthy, I don't have any. So I wasn't really heavily focused at the quarterback position. No Penix either. I tried to get Penix in some leagues, but I do the quarterbacks. I own, I rostered Drake May in a few leagues, and Bo Nix I actually got in a few leagues because the value is there. Like I said, that single QB league, I got him at 209. I did take him at 111 in a league that I was desperate for quarterback and I needed help in.
Which is fine.
And it's a 14-team league, so I'm like, you know what? I'm fine with it. And then I took Bo Nix in a league that Damon and I co-owned together at 205.
Yeah, that's I tried trading up to get him. You guys were like, "Oh, who are you gonna go for?" And it was JSN
back-to-back picks.
It was JSN for 2 mid-seconds, so it wasn't a bad trade. But
no,
the quarterback value in that league, especially in that league, even though it's 10 teams, it's like everybody it's a home league. Everybody caught on. It's like, okay, quarterbacks are everything.
And we were also happy to get Nix because we had the 101. We traded down to the 102. So our roster said, oh, we could totally use Caleb, but I wanted Marv. So we traded down, we picked up a pick and took Marv at 102 and then ended up getting Nix as the QB in that draft. And we also drafted Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson. So that's a total rebuild that I've been doing with Damon for a few years now, and it's really starting to come together, which is awesome. So Crooked Commish says, with a shared team, would you agree to have one guy focus and draft your QB, tight end, and defense, for example, and the other guy draft and focus on running back, wide receiver, and kicker or something like that? Just an idea. My initial thoughts are no. It's not like one person, because then it's like, okay, which position do we take? And it creates that debate. It's really about like, let's look at the team need, let's look at the team structure and see what's best for the team. What do you think about that, Tyler?
For me, it's a no, just because I feel like you could definitely throw say your quarterback room starts sucking super bad. You know whose fault it is. Like that's the issue. And then you're going to start kind of being irritated by that co-owner, which then causes a rift between the co-owners, and which can just lead to a rocky team. I think you got to work together, but when it comes to rookie drafts, which position doesn't matter, I think that is when it's fun. When you can okay, you can have this pick. Like maybe the first round you agree upon players. Second round, if you have a couple, you can be like, okay, you can have this pick and I'll have this pick. And then third round, I'll take the earlier pick. You take the next pick. Like that's when it gets fun. But when it's like in a startup or something, and you guys have like positional scouts per se, like no, I wouldn't do that, because then you can definitely point the finger and then
it can create some like, oh well, because you did this, and it's just not a good collaborative experience. And from what I would see is that you want to try to work as one, not like, oh, you take this position, I take this position. Well, there's going to be a pinch point in that draft where someone's going to be like, we need running back, and the other person will be like, no, we need wide receiver, and someone's going to have to give. And then it creates that potential rift of like, and then if that pick goes bad, that person made them, didn't make the right pick.
Yeah.
And you were like, well, we should have drafted this person. it's just not off to a good start. So I would
Yep.
stray away from that.
And then as a co-owner, I think something that I would have to say that I recognize with you is that be open to suggestions. Like, we never ever thought about dealing Joe Burrow, but I was looking over the team and I said, you know what? I think we can be okay trading away Burrow because we have Purdy and Goff. And I brought it up to you and I said, hey, maybe we should look to dealing Burrow. And Doug was open to it, which is what you should do as a co-owner. And we absolutely love our team now. Like, we branched out to other positions. We got Laporta, we got Stafford, and we got a draft pick, which turned into Xavier Worthy. So we dipped into position that we were getting a little older at, even though we have Chase and Jefferson. But like, that is what you should lead yourself to be open to. Like, even with the draft with Jefferson, like, you were kind of hesitant on Jefferson, but you believed in my evaluation of him as the wide receiver 1. You're like, okay, let's hit accept as like 112, and we actually, I think we traded Lamb to get that pick, maybe, because we had Lamb at 107, then we traded it back for like 2 late first, and then you're like, yeah, let's take Jefferson, and hey, it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, no, it wasn't bad at all. And the one thing you don't want to do is make a trade without telling your fellow co-manager.
That has happened too.
Yes, it has. And I was irate. So yeah, don't let that happen. Luckily, I was able to forgive Tyler and gave him his lashings when I was there in Minnesota last summer. Which he's
I was on trade ban. I was on trade ban for I think 2 years in that league.
Yeah, it was a while because I was like, yikes. Other positions, running back, I'm not heavily invested in this class. I do like a lot of the players, but Brooks and Benson are the 2 most rostered for me, and those are really the 2 guys I'm the most interested in. When it comes to running back. At wide receiver, like I said, I've got a couple Marv, I've got 1 Neighbors, a little bit of everything else. So I've got Thomas, I've got Worthy, I've got McConkey in a couple of spots, but no one I'm heavily invested in. Roman Wilson in a spot. And then at tight end, like I said, I've got no Bowers, but I've got a lot of Ben Sinnott. I've got him in, I think, 3 leagues now, because I believe in Sinnott and his value has been pretty good. In these tight end premium leagues, he's going late second, early third. And the way I look at it is this. So, one of the things that put me onto Laporta last year was the opportunity. Same thing with Jaden Reed. And, when you see a guy that's like, okay, this is clear that this guy could be the second pass catcher in this offense. Look at Washington right now. We know Terry McLaurin is there. We don't know if Jahan Dotson's going to bounce back. They drafted Luke McCaffrey. They have Austin Eckler, but Ben Sinnott, it's Zach Ertz there. He could easily be the second pass catcher there. And at that price, I'm willing to pay it. So I've got him in a few leagues as well. And then I've got some flyer guys, Theo Johnson. Tyler mentioned Jared Wiley. I've gotten some leagues. So I'm pretty well diversified this year. I'm not super all in on any one player, which if you do that, that's great. Now there's certain, like in auctions, like in this particular auction, like I'm all in on Brock Bowers. That's really who I want because he best fits my roster and I'm willing to pay to get this player. And sometimes you just have to be patient, especially in these auction leagues where the clock resets every 10 hours and someone bumps you by $1. It can be maddening. I'm not a huge fan, but it is what it is. So yeah, so my rostership is pretty well diversified this year, but a few players that stick out of guys that I have on multiple rosters.
Same. And I would have to say McConkey is one that I wish I had more shares of. I got one with you in Trade Addicts, and that is my only. And yeah, like Roman Wilson, I snagged up in the footballers draft where I had Bowers and I traded back the old footballers writers league where it's a bunch of like current and past writers for the footballers. It's a very, very fun league.
I would agree.
All right, Doug, shall we get into these drafts?
Yes, let's do this.
All right, which one do you want to do first? Should we do UDPL first?
Let's do UDPL first.
Okay, so UDPL has a bunch of industry people. We've got the guys from Dynasty Bros, Dynasty Nerds, Rotobahn. We've got the FF Dynasty. We've got Doug. We've got Memphis from Dynasty Warzone. We got Zach from RotoWire. Is it RotoWire or RotoViz?
He's done stuff with RotoViz and he's with Roto World right now.
Okay. And then we got Gabe and J Mike from the Open Bar. We got me. We got Izzy from Dynasty Trade Calculator. We've got Dynasty Theory. And we also have Garrett from the Dynasty Nerds who won it all last year. So I'm just going to go round by round, and then we'll kind of go over the picks. So Dynasty Bros Chief Sosa, he went Marv Harrison, which shocked the world. He needed this team is an absolute dumpster fire.
Well, we thought and Rich was at the 102, and he was locked in that he was going to get Harrison.
I mean, legit. Dynasty Bros needed a quarterback more than anything, and Rich needed receivers because he had Richardson, Mahomes, and Daniel Jones. He was set at quarterback. He needed receivers. So this just shook up the whole draft right from the start, and we're all sitting there like, "Hey, is this real? Like, did this happen?" And so Rich went Caleb, of course, and now he's got Richardson and he's got Mahomes on the trade block, which you can't trade Mahomes in a dynasty league. Like, he's the hardest player to trade because you're not getting the actual value you need from him. And yeah, it's trust me, it's the hardest thing to trade Mahomes. Our friend Pete Davidson, a Rotobon, he took Malik Neighbors because he's
Pete Davidson.
Not that Pete Davidson. I mean,
he's much older and better looking.
He parties like him though. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Then we got the FF Dynasty. They had 104, which I traded into. This is the trade where I gave up Kyler for 104, and I took Jane Daniels, hit the reset. And then Doug had this pick and traded it to Zach, and Zach took JJ McCarthy. Doug, you can kind of explain.
This was easy for me. So Zach had the 107, and he's like, hey, I'm looking to move up because I feel like someone else is going to try to get McCarthy. And I told him, I said, McCarthy's not my guy. I said, I've got other offers, which I had another offer at the time. I don't know who it was for. So he's like, I want to move up from 107 to 105. And I said, all right, well, I'm not getting my guy, so I'm cool with that. Why don't you give me a couple future thirds? So I gave him a good price to do it because it's not like it was going to hurt me. I wasn't interested in McCarthy at all. Now, the key to this whole thing was I went from the 105 to the 107. While I was on the clock with the 105, I was actively trying to acquire the 106.
Which the FF Dynasty had.
So I was trying to use Jalen Waddle as the catalyst to trade for the 106 because I wanted Roma Dunze in that spot. So it ended up being a bigger deal where I ended up sending the 106, the 111, and I think a later second round pick, and I got Saquon Barkley, the 106, which ended up being Roma Dunze. I feel like there was another piece in that, maybe a couple of later picks, because my team was running back needy, and I looked at what was going to be available at the 111, and I was like, well, I might be able to get Brooks there, but I wasn't sure. I also had the 20. No, did I have the 111 or this was the 201? I had the 111 because I traded Rashee Rice. So I had the 111 and the 201.
Yep.
So I was like, well, maybe Brooks will make it to me at the 201. But if he doesn't, I've got Saquon Barkley. I'm cool with that. So I sent Waddle and the 111 for what ended up being a Dunze Barkley. And there was some other details in there or whatever. So I got that deal done and then made the trade with Zach and moved to the 107. So then I had the 106 and the 107, and I took Roma Dunze, and then I took Drake May.
Yep, Drake May at 10. Yeah, Drake May was at 106. Yeah, true.
Okay, so I took a Dunze at 107. I did schematics.
And then Gabe and J Mike took Brock Bowers. They were tight end needy. I actually tried trading TJ Hawkinson straight up for Bowers, and they wanted nothing to do with it. Hawkinson's value has been on a very big decline, and I get everybody's worried about the injury,
like in the quarterback downgrade, but it's still TJ Hawkinson. Like,
yeah, I mean Hawkinson was tight end one.
I think rookie quarterbacks like their tight ends, right? Especially when they're good ones.
Yep. And Rotobon took Brian Thomas with the pick he got from me for a Josh Allen trade last year, which I traded Josh Allen, because I like trading. Xavier Worthy went to Izzy. Lad McConkey at the 111 spot you traded back. And then Jonathan Brooks to Rich, which another surprising pick because Rich, he didn't need running back really. He needed a receiver, and he decided to go away from the position. He went with best player on his board, which is what you should always do.
Yeah, and I was sitting there at the 201, and I'm like, I don't think Rich will take Brooks. So I was fully prepared to get Brooks at the 201. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. And then I was on the clock. Well, we got the 112. Why don't you do the 112 first?
Yeah, 112 is Jonathan Brooks.
Oh, it was Brooks at the 12. That's right.
Yep,
So
and then 201 was up.
So I was at the 201, and Tyler reached out and was
We had a
like,
trade for 111 for
yeah.
Cooks.
So once Brooks was off the board, like running back was my biggest team need. And I was like, you know what? It's either Benson here or James Cook. And to me, James Cook had the 4th most rushing yards in the league. He was a top 6 or 7 running back in the last month of the season. They added Ray Davis. Okay. Joe Brady's still the OC there now that he took over. So for me, 201 for James Cook, the value was there, so I took that. I went with the known asset versus the unknown because Trey Benson's not going to help me this year. I mean, he could. It's possible. But I'm a Florida State guy, but Trey Benson isn't I don't love Trey Benson. I like him. Yeah. I like James Cook a lot more. So that's why I pulled the trigger for 201 for James Cook. And I don't know if there was anything else added on top of that, but I think it was pretty.
It was 1 for 1.
Yeah.
And at the 201, this is where the pick I was like, okay, I'm gonna go Bo Nix because I'm like quarterback value. Let's go Bo. But you guys all know, if you've been listening, my feelings on Bo Nix. They are very negative. I can't get the Auburn tape out of my head. And I even messaged friend Cecil Lammy, who is a reporter there in Denver, and I said, hey, tell me about Bo Nix. Talk me into drafting Bo Nix. And he goes, he's a supercomputer. He's a Sean Payton guy. He's going to get the ball out quick. And his deep ball is better than you think. So I'm like, okay, Bo Nix, here we go. And then I thought to myself, I've got Daniels. I've got Brock Purdy. Is he going to help me? Is his value good? And I'm like, okay. And then I started overthinking. Then I'm like, well, I need running back. So I was like, okay, Trey Benson. And I was talking to Doug this whole time. I'm like, Trey Benson, he's the pick. He's got to be the pick. Just James Cook for Trey Benson. And then I was like, I hate drafting running backs. I don't want to draft running backs this early.
Yeah, you're.
And then I'm like, it was rough. And then I'm like, well, I could go Michael Penix because I don't need a quarterback right now, and he's on my team. He's on Atlanta. Let's go Penix. He's a top 10 quarterback. Those hit rates are awesome with top 10 quarterbacks. Here we go. Penix. Penix is the pick. He's got to be the pick. I like this tape. And then I'm like, oh my God. And then I thought to myself, a 20-year-old receiver, going to be 21 very soon, who has a massive catch radius and fits well with Josh Allen. Mm-hmm. And then instinct kicked in, and I'm like, all right, my gut is telling me to go Keon Coleman. So I did. I hit the draft button, and I went Keon Coleman. Literally last second, didn't even think about it when I traded for the pick. And then I went Keon Coleman. Those always work out, Doug. These picks always work out.
Totally.
So I took Keon Coleman over Bo Nix, which was very tough. Those are my two choices, and I should have went Bo, come to think of it, but Keon Coleman, his upside is too hard to pass up because I think his value could just go through the roof. Like if he has 100-yard week 1 with 6 catches, his value is nutso. And I think if Bo Nix has 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, I think he kind of stays even because his value is already going up, in my opinion, right now.
Yeah, he's starting to get more positive buzz out of camp.
So Keon Coleman was my pick. Izzy was up, and he took Ricky Pearsall, which was a surprising pick.
A little early, I thought, yeah.
And Pete went Trey Benson, which Pete always gets these big running backs that were drafted in like the 2nd or 3rd round. Pete always snakes those guys up. Like I was looking at his roster, I'm like, God, he always gets these 2nd or 3rd round running backs.
He's got a type.
Yes. And then I tried trading for this pick. I offered a 26 first. I was trying to get Penix, and they said no. And guess what? I'm still trying to trade for Penix, guys. I'm giving a 26 first and plus for Penix. And then with 205, Blake Corum went to Gabe and J Mike. Bo Nix to our friend Chief Sosa and Dynasty Bros, which if you look at his roster now after taking Marv, it was a good pick.
Yeah, he didn't take the quarterback at 101. He got Nix at 206. Like, okay.
He's got Rodgers and Nix. His receiving core is Justin Jefferson and Marv. Like I was looking at him like, did he make the right choice? Like, and it worked out so well for him.
It worked out nicely.
So that was a great great value. And then I traded up to get Jalen Wright, one of my guys. I wanted to get a running back, and I took him above Marshawn Lloyd, which a lot of people were kind
I'm
of
fine with that.
shocked. Yeah, Jalen Wright for me. Gabe and J Mike took Marshawn Lloyd. Zach, who needs tight end more than anything, took Ben Snott. Then I traded up with Izzy. I gave up a future second for this pick, and I took Xavier Legette. I'm like, okay, first run receiver. It's between him and A.D. Mitchell, which Dynasty Price took at the 211. I know Garrett is a big A.D. Mitchell fan. He thinks his upside is very high.
Mm-hmm.
For me, give me the first run receiver that's going to get probably more looks early on. Even though A.D. Mitchell, even though I have like none of him.
I only have that one, and I got him in a 14-team league. I think I got him at 206.
So I think we're all in agreement. He's going to go through the roof. He's going to just destroy and be great.
So.
And then Chief Sosa comes in and takes Troy Franklin to pair with Bo Nix. Like, maybe we were undervaluing that, Marv. I really like his draft. Yeah. That I will say. Izzy comes in with Jalen Polk, which is another surprising pick with a lot of players on the board. But Izzy knows what he's doing. He always ends up with a dominating squad. Rich takes Jameer Burton, which he has a ton of. If you listen to Dynasty Nerds, Rich talks about that.
I was hoping Burton was going to slide to me.
And then Doug comes in with Pete's pick, and you took Roman Wilson.
Yep.
You got a Roman Wilson share.
Yeah, my only one so far.
I love Roman Wilson. And then Gabe and J Mike take Javon Baker. The FF Dynasty guys take Malachi Corley, which no thank you. Rich comes in and takes
a couple spots.
Rich comes in and takes Bucky Irving. Pete comes in and takes his type of running back, Audric Esme.
I'm so out on Bucky Irving. I don't know what it is about it.
And then the FF Dynasty guys take Sanders. Chief Sosa comes in and takes Brendan Rice, which I thought was extremely early.
That's a bit of a reach there.
Jalen McMillan goes to Izzy. Garrett goes and takes Rasheen Ali, which I thought was early too. Mm-hmm. Eric All goes to Pete at the end of the third, that was an early pick. And then Chief Sosa comes in, takes Will Shipley, and then I'll just go through the fourth round. Rich goes Tyron Tracy. And then I trade up, and I take Spencer Rattler at the 403. I'm like, okay.
Smart.
It was between him and one of these running backs like Vidal or somebody like that. And
Rattler's going to have the most value if he hits.
Yes, exactly. And we hate Derek Carr in this place. Like, so give me a guy I want to cheer for over Derek Carr. And I mean, if you look at the Saints social media, they're showing a lot of Rattler, like a lot of him.
I would not be surprised if Carr is not great this year, that they just be like, let's see what we got in this kid.
Exactly. Like, kind of like with Howell. And Howell's value went through the roof too.
I should have traded him.
I still think Howell is a starter in Seattle.
I think Gino's on his last year.
I mean, they're already talking about Howell having a locker room there. So, and then Rodobon takes Garendo. Izzy takes Vidal. Chief Sosa takes Braylon Allen. Our friend Zach takes Devontae Walker. Izzy takes Luke McCaffrey, which I tried trading up for the pick to take.
Yeah, that was good value on McCaffrey.
I wanted to trade up and try to pair him with Daniels, but I already got. I traded for what's his name, Dotson. Chief Sosa comes in and takes Jordan Travis. Doug, you come in and take Theo Johnson, the high athletic tight end.
Yeah,
which you always have a nose.
Shocker.
You always have a nose for. You always have a nose for tight ends.
That's very true.
Malik Washington to the Dynasty Theory. Lob to Garrett, which was a good pick. I like Lob. Cade Stover to Chief Sosa. That's a good pick. Rodobon comes in and takes Jared Wiley. I wanted that pick too.
You're like, you son of a bitch.
Yes. Jacob Cowing comes in and goes to Gabe and J Mike. Jamari Thrash goes in with Casey Myers in the FF Dynasty. Aeneas Smith to you, Doug.
Yep.
Because why not get something part of that offense?
He ends up being, hey, Devontae Parker just retired. He could be the slot receiver there.
Yep. Memphis, with his only pick, takes Frank Gore Jr. Not the Frank Gore. Johnny Wilson to Zach. Tanner McLaughlin goes to Gabe and J Mike.
I like him.
I got this pick, part of our James Cook trade. Anthony Gould, I took at the 509.
Yeah, late fifth.
AJ Barner, Blake Watson, and Joe Milton with the last pick to Gabe and J Mike, which I thought was a good last pick shot because the dude has a cannon. He's going to be the Hail Mary guy for New England.
He'll be the
Even
new,
though
if you're an old school Patriots fan, you'll know the name Michael Bishop. He was the Hail Mary guy. Like they'd bring him in and he'd throw the ball like 60 yards up in the air.
if the Patriots are on the 20, don't count them out for a Hail Mary. Like that's what we're talking about arm talent wise. Like this guy
should be sick.
Even Cecil Lammey said Joe Milton has a stronger arm than Josh Allen. Like that's his talent. He's got a stronger arm than Allen, but that's it. Like that's where it ends because he's not accurate. He can definitely hit people in stride and stuff. But yeah, that is our draft. Like it was a fun draft. It's a lot. This is when this league gets a lot of movement going, and
lots of trades.
Of course, after this is where the dead period comes in because everybody's kind of analyzing things and
everyone's roster baiting and being like, oh yeah.
Yep. I mean, everybody's kind of being like, okay, I'm gonna wait. And the thing is Rich on his talks about running back and trading. He's got Etienne, and he can't trade Etienne for the life of him because nobody in this league wants to trade for running backs at a high price. And that's
I think I offered him. We were in discussions for the 111 or 201 for Etienne, and I just didn't want to like overpay.
And I think in hindsight, on Rich's podcast on Dynasty Nerds, he talked about how in hindsight he might have done that because of the one-on-one swap for Brooks, like being able to do that swap. Because Etienne, I think, is one of those guys that you might want to see if you can ship off earlier than later, because the Jags have shown that they really, really want to have a committee. So my thoughts on this draft, I thought Jane Daniels is going to make my team fun. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but it'll be fun to watch. So I would have to say, if we had to rank our teams, Doug, in this league, I think I'm still in the middle. I think I'm sitting there, not a contender. I mean, Garrett won, and his quarterbacks were Carr and Baker.
Yeah.
So in this league, you can win with very little.
I think the way that I've effectively reset my roster, like I've done almost like a soft reset in the last year, where I acquired Bryce Young on the cheap. I've got Joe Burrow. I've got Jamar Chase and Garrett Wilson as my top two receivers. I've got Rome now as my future wide receiver 3, so I like that upside. I've got Laporta at tight end. I've got a lot of startable pieces. Cook and Barkley head my running back room now. I've got Devin Singletary as my third, and I'm okay with that. And I've got Chase Brown. I've got some high upside guys and guys that can hit. I've got a lot of youth on my roster. So for me, it's like, could I win it? It's possible. I mean, last year my roster was good. I just was getting dunked on. I think I scored like the third most points in the league and finished in,
your matchups were not great for you.
Yeah. So I've gotten younger. I've traded off my older pieces. I got away from Rashee Rice and was able to make something happen with that. So I feel I should be a top 5 team, but we'll see what the season brings.
Yep. And it's literally based off matchups. And let's go to a quick question by the Crooked Commish. He asked what that trade was for Pitts. And in Trade Addicts, it was, we traded up with Raleigh Bymaster, and I gave up, 2 future first, a future second.
I'm so pissed.
And Doug was more on the lines of giving a first and 2 seconds, and then it ended up being 2 first and a second. The first ended up being Jalen Waddle, and I think the other first flamed out. So I think we're pretty lucky with that.
Yeah. But at the time, I was like, what happened? Because I wasn't a huge Pitts guy.
Yes. You thought Pat Fryermuth later on. But, I mean, we're still looking at Pitts, and he's still a big part of the team.
And Fryermuth's value was gone kind of in the toilet.
And the nice part about it, and the nice part about it is you can always get draft picks back. We are definitely back in the draft pick realm because we haven't had a first round in that league. Well, we traded into it, but it's been a while. So
I'll go over the comic book league. We'll try to keep it quick. This is a local to Minnesota league that Tyler and I have been in. I took over a team 5 years ago, 4 or 5,
3, 4.
I don't know. I was last place. Yeah. My team got snapped. So at the end of the year, it's all comic book characters. If your team finishes in last place, Thanos got snapped, ironically. And now I'm the Punisher, and I've won the league a couple of times now, which is good. And I'm right up there and hoping to win it again. I made the championship game this year, but didn't win. But I had some good first round capital, which was always nice. When you have a competitive team, I ended up trading DeAndre Hopkins last year or 2 years ago, and it ended up being the 104 this year. And then I had the 108 and a 109 as well. But this is a fun league. So it's super flex. It also is tight end premium. So Tyler, you traded into the 101 spot to get Caleb.
It took me a while to get 101. That's the thing, is I traded up. I traded up from, God, what was it? I think I had, I don't remember what I had. I think it was like a 202 and something, but I traded up from something to get 105. And then I had 105, and then I traded up to 103. And then I traded I started at 105, traded up to 103, then I traded up to 101 because it's a contract league, like you said. I had Mahomes. He's on a contract extension, so I had him for 2 more years. And there's no way I'm touching Mahomes after. Like, I'm not going to be able to sign him.
He's going to be expensive. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought to myself, I need to start looking for the future. My team is great everywhere else. So I thought to myself, let's focus on quarterback. And I was at 103. I'm like, I could take Daniels, I could take May, or I could trade up and get Caleb. Probably my only share of Caleb. So I did that. It took me a couple pieces, but I felt comfortable with it. And now Caleb is my quarterback 2 right next to Herbert. So I was comfortable with that.
And then I was up. I originally did not have the 102. Our friend Damon did, who I co-own in the other league with. And I had the 104. And I was like, you know what? I want to try to make a move up and secure Marv. Like, I really want Marv. So I sent the 104. He didn't have a second round pick. So I sent him a second round pick and I think something else to move up from 104 to 102. And I took Marvin Harrison Jr. Happy to do that. And then at 103, he originally had the 101. Now he had the 103 and he picked Jaden Daniels and made a lot of sense there. And then Damon with the 104 that I traded him, a little bit of a surprise. He took JJ McCarthy at the 104.
See, it's not to me. It's a Minnesota home league.
I know. But
so
he's
the
a Broncos
value,
guy.
That's true. But the value for McCarthy, like if McCarthy hits or does anything,
it'll be big. Yeah.
It's either Colts in this league for one team, or it's Vikings.
Yeah. So McCarthy went at the 104, and then I had the 108 and 109, and I wanted to move up because I saw that Malik Neighbors was available at the 105. I did not need tight end help. I have Laporta. I have Mark Andrews. So I was like, you know what? I want to try to get Malik Neighbors. Let's see what I can do. So I traded the 109 and Deebo Samuel. There might have been something else on top of that to go from the 109 to the 105, and I took Malik Neighbors. So in this draft, I was able to secure Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. So making some boss moves and making sure that my roster is going to still be competitive years to come. I already have a pretty good wide receiver room. So just making it that much stronger. So it's always good when you can strengthen a roster and make a position even better. At 106, James, another former co-host. Shout out to James. We all knew he was taking Brock Bowers. It was his team's biggest need.
I was hoping he wouldn't.
I originally tried to trade for the 108 or 109 to 106 and offered him 109 and Mark Andrews for 106. 2 years of Mark Andrews and he wouldn't budge. So I was like, fuck, he's going to take Brock Bowers. So I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And then Tyler, you had the 107. Talk to me about that.
So I traded for 107. I looked around the league, and like I said, I had Mahomes on an expiring contract. Knew I wouldn't be able to touch him. So I thought in leagues like this, if you see 2 years on a guy where you can have him for 2 full years, he is more valuable than when you see one. Like when Mahomes has 1 year on him, I'm getting a second at best. So what I thought to myself, now would be a good time to trade Mahomes, which sucks because I'm still in the championship window. Mm-hmm. So I traded Mahomes for 107, and I took Rome Odunze to pair up with Caleb. I don't need receiver help right now. I'm pretty deep there, but the Rome and Caleb stack was too hard to pass up, even though I could have traded for Drake May because I have Deshaun Watson as my quarterback 3, which isn't promising. But I thought to myself, I could go May, get my first share, or I could get my 1 share of Rome to pair up with Caleb, which made way more sense for this team.
Yeah, and then I had the 108, which the only pick I didn't trade, I sat on, and I gladly took Drake May. My roster right now for quarterbacks is Lamar, Jared Goff, and Aaron Rodgers. So I needed that taxi squad guy that I can stash on the taxi. I don't need to worry about starting him this year. It's a perfect situation to draft Drake May in that spot. So that was easy for me to take him. At 109, which is the pick that I traded back to Phillip, for the 105. He took Brian Thomas Jr., and then Xavier Worthy rounded out the first round as a 10-team league at the 110. And then Groot owned the second round. He had a lot of second-round picks. I think he had 4. He ended up taking Jonathan Brooks 201 and taking Bo Nix 202, which makes sense in this league. So I thought those are both really good picks. And then Philip, our friend Squirrel Girl, took Michael Penix at 203. Keon Coleman went off the board at 204. And then James took Trey Benson at 205. And then I was on the board. I had a mid-second that I didn't trade away. And I just went best player available. And to me, at the 206 to get Ladd McConkey, I was like, all right, another receiver. Again, I can put him on the taxi. I don't need him to start. I've got Puka Nacua. I've got T. Higgins. I've got some other talent on the roster. So I was like, you know what? McConkey is the best play. I can put him on the taxi. Don't have to worry about it. And I know you were trying to get into that pick, Tyler.
Yep.
Blake Corum went at the 207, followed by Ricky Pearsall, and then Marshawn Lloyd to our friend Damon at the 209. Jalen Wright at the 210, which I thought was good value to our friend Nick Venom. And then Adonai Mitchell, no shocker here. Our friend Josh, Team Batman, owns almost every Colt except for Anthony Richardson. That's fantasy relevant. And even ones that are fantasy irrelevant, he still owns them.
He wants Richardson so bad.
He'll overpay.
It's great. It's nuts. And Jason is living life. Groot is the guy who has Richardson, and he is sitting there just being like, this is great. Like, I could get the world for him. He could get Garrett Wilson plus probably 2 first if you wanted, and he's not going to.
Yeah, and we had the 211 as a compensatory pick added into the draft. So he took Adonai Mitchell, and then we kicked off the third round, 301, Xavier Legette.
That's good value.
That is good value. And then 302 went Roman Wilson, and then Tyler took a tight end. He took Ben Sinnott at the 303. So I like that pick.
Get Bowers.
Yeah, and then tight end premium, that's great value. This is an IDP league, so we did start to see some IDP players come off the board. We had Laitu Latu.
Of course.
Again, a Colt. Shocker. Going to Josh at the 304. Troy Franklin to James, who is a big Troy Franklin guy. He loves Troy Franklin, so he took him at 305, which made a ton of sense for him. So I'm sure he was pumped. He originally had Troy Franklin like in his first round, like before the draft. So I know James was excited to get him there. Jared Verse went to our friend Damon at 306. Jalen Polk and Jermaine Burton, and then Malachi Corley to me. So 3 receivers right in a row. You see how IDP? Burton. Yeah, you see IDP can push some value down. So you got Burton. I got Malachi Corley. Again, taxi squad guy. If he hits, cool. If he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. And then Spencer Rattler went at the 310. Luke McCaffrey at 401. And then Tyler, you had a couple picks back to back here.
Yeah, I took Dallas Turner, the defensive end. So if
Minnesota
you guys,
homer.
Well, the thing is if you guys don't know IDP scoring for this league, if you have a good defensive end, they could score
TJ Watt
12
boats of points.
They could score top 12 receiver numbers. So what I was thinking is he's replacing
Danielle Hunter.
Yeah, Danielle Hunter. He's replacing Danielle Hunter. So if he could get 10 plus sacks, like you're always looking for a good defensive end in this league. That like I have Max Crosby, and there's times when he puts up 40 to 50, 40 to 50 points. So
I had Aaron Donald for a year, and he did that.
Yes, and it's always nice to have that blanket. Like the best part about this league, and it is my favorite league, is if you have an IDP player left and you're down by 30, you could still win.
You got a shot.
That's the best part. Like if you have a linebacker, a defensive end, like I've had Max Crosby win me weeks because I'm like down by 35, and it's like I could still hit this, and it's a prime time.
Fred Warner's bailed my ass out a couple times.
Yes, it's so fun. So I took him, and then Jalen McMillan, who is one of my guys. I was so happy it fell, and I was happy to get a piece of that. So yeah, and then Batman comes in, takes Junior Colson. Then
he took a non-Colt, but that's good value on Colson, who a lot of people have as the linebacker one in this class because of.
I should have taken him over McMillan.
That's all right. And then Tyler Nubbin went to Damon, who had some IDP needs. He was the first safety drafted by the Giants. Chop Robinson at the 406, Kamani Vidal 407, and then I was on the clock at the 408. I didn't really have a lot of defensive player needs. My roster is pretty solid, so I went with another wide receiver because you know what? I'm just going to keep stacking up wide receivers because their value tends to grow outside of quarterback the most in Dynasty League. So I took Javon Baker for me was a smash at that spot. I was very, very happy with that pick. And then Cole Bishop, again, Damon went with defense. He took the safety from Buffalo with the 409. Jatavian Sanders at 410. And then we kicked off the 5th round with Audric Estime.
Sniped twice.
Yeah.
Right before my pick.
And then Damon, continuing his IDP rebuild here, took Edgerrin Cooper at 502, which is a fantastic value. And then Tyler took Ray Davis.
I was sniped. Audric Estime and Cooper were my 2 choices. Yeah, so I was definitely trying to think, what the hell am I going to do? I wanted Cooper so bad because I have no linebackers. Like, that is what I'm looking at. I have what's his name from Baltimore?
Roquan?
Yeah, Roquan. I have Roquan, who's on a contract extension.
Yeah.
And that's it right now. So I was definitely searching. And Cooper was easily my choice. I thought he was the one, especially in this defense. I'm like, he's going to just soak up tackles after tackles.
I got him at the 306 in that home IDP league.
And then I was like, okay, time to group. And I was like, okay, let's just go Ray Davis. Let's just get a running back on the taxi and see if he pans out.
There you go. Then we had Bucky Irving at 504, followed by Brendan Rice, Braylon Allen at 506, Peyton Wilson at 507.
Should have went him.
I'm surprised you didn't go Peyton Wilson, you goon.
No, it was after he was picked. I was like, oh God.
Why didn't I pick Peyton Wilson? Everyone's like, oh, injury history. He's played the last
He's got no
years,
knees,
no
Doug.
issues.
He's got no knees.
Even as Tajay Spears, and he's fine. And then it was Will Shipley. So you got double sniped on linebacker here.
I have Barkley, so Shipley kind of made a little sense for me.
Yeah, and then Damon took Theo Johnson, followed by Tyrone Tracy at the 510. We do go 6 rounds in this league. We go deep. Braylon Trice, defensive end out of Atlanta, a lot of people like at the 601. I took Malik Washington at the 602. Looking back on it, like, did I really need another wide receiver? I should have just taken my guy Braden Fisk from Florida State.
You were pissed.
I was like, I thought he might last to me at my next pick because I had the 609. He did not. He went right after I picked. And then Batman took Frank Gore Jr. Jared Wiley went to our friend Al. So he got him. That's a nice value.
His only pick.
It wasn't really his only pick. He sold out last year and it didn't work out. Rasheen Ali went to James at the 606. I like that pick a lot. Better than Isaac Garendo at the 607. And then you had the 2 of the last 3 picks, Tyler. You picked Cooper DeJean at the 608 and Eric All at the 610. And then I picked Jordan Travis because I was like, you know what? The value's there. He's a quarterback. He can only go up if he plays at the 609.
Yeah. So Cooper DeJean was going to be my pick at 508. So I was happy he fell. I think he's the best IDP scoring safety in this draft.
Yeah.
He's got like you mentioned after the pick, he's got a lot of Antoine Winfield in him, which he can just pretty much float anywhere on the field. He could tackle, he can pick off balls, which is perfect for this league. And I have Winfield on, I think, a contract extension, so it worked out good.
Yeah.
And Eric All, I traded Michael Mayer for this pick. And at first you're
so
like,
bizarre to me. I was like, what are you doing?
And then I was like, tight ends.
Mayer's value is dead. I'm like, what?
That, and it's all about upside value. And I have decent tight ends already. I drafted Sonat already. So I thought to myself,
you should have just traded Mayer to me for the 609. I would have done that.
So for me, I thought to myself, why not just take another shot on a high, super athletic tight end? And this was after I listened to Thor about Eric All, and that helped me decide the pick because Thor said he's a top 3 in this class tight end when it comes to athletic ability and ability in general.
Yeah,
it's just injuries that's holding him back. And even Thor said he would not be shocked if he ends up being better than Sonat if he stays healthy.
That's fair. That is fair. Yeah, so that wrapped up our draft. I was really happy because I filled some team needs for the future, and I got a lot of players that I really like, especially like guys like Javon Baker and Jordan Travis, and guys like I didn't really have in other leagues. So it's nice to have those deep taxi squads because you can fill them with talent and then use that talent to churn it over and either trade. So if like some of those guys hits and like, well, they won't really touch my starting lineup, then you can use to trade. Whether it's up in the draft or for another team need that might present itself during the season. So that's kind of my mentality with that stuff. So I am liking that. I have no regrets from that league. It was a lot of fun. Tyler, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, wrapping up episode 400. I know this episode is a little bit about us, but that's what this episode is for. Episode 400. It's about us. So we made the episode a little bit about us, but you know what my favorite episodes are to listen to are episodes like this, where you get an insight of what people are actually doing instead of mocks and like, oh, maybe this could happen, go trade for. Like, these are actual things that happen in a league, and I actually find those interesting.
Yeah, and talking
what
stuff
other
about
people
like
do.
team need and like, all right, I could have gone this position, but I went this position because this is what it's like. Yeah, it just makes more sense. Mock drafts are fun, but they're just overdone.
Yeah, and I mean mocks are mocks. That's what they are. And so I thought we would give you guys an insight to an industry league and a home league, an IDP league. Both are super flex. I did one quarterback draft, and which was absolutely crazy. Quarterback still went early because it's a 6-point passing touchdown league, like you said, Doug, earlier. But yeah, like just the style of different leagues and how it pushes value down. It's always fun to look to see what actually happens in rookie drafts.
100%. Shout out to Trophy Smack. Also want to give a shout out to Underdog. Use code DHH. They'll match up to $100 today. We've got the NHL playoffs still going on. The NBA is in the conference finals. Shout out to the Celtics for pulling that out in overtime. I should have never gotten there, but whatever. I'm over it. It's fine. Let's go Wolves. I'll be rooting for them. If we get a Wolves Celtics finals, Tyler.
Yeah. I would just be happy. I'll just be old school 50s boxing. I'd just be happy if we got there.
You know, here's my thing. If the Celtics have been in the finals, the Eastern Conference Finals, 6 out of the last 8 years. If they don't win it this year, massive failure.
They're gonna probably blow it up after because I mean,
I don't know. All the guys are still under contract, so we'll see. I don't know. I'll just be disappointed because the team is the best in the league, and if they get Kristaps back for the finals, they're gonna need him. So hopefully they win, but we'll see.
It'll be an interesting like basketball talk at the end. It'll be an interesting matchup because the Wolves are the best defensive team in the league,
and the Celtics
are one of the better offensive teams. That you guys need Porzingis back, but
we need the size for sure.
That's what makes it interesting about this Dallas Maverick team, because Dallas is a very small team, and we've got 2 7-footers in the paint. So this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, lots of 3-pointers, I think. So that'll be fun. So check out Underdog. Use code DHH. Get that $100 matched today. And baseball's also going on. Yawn. No one seems to care.
Hockey.
Yeah, I said that already. There's golf as well as NASCAR. You can really play anything on Underdog. It's amazing. So go ahead and sign up. Code DHH. That's going to wrap it up for episode 400 of the Dynasty Happy Hour. Here's to 400 more.
Well, maybe. See if I survive that long.
Same. All right. Thanks for joining us. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube if you watch us there. Go on Apple iTunes. Drop a like, rating, all that thing. Leave comments if you got some feedback for us. Please let us know. We're always not only willing to listen, but it's good to have that kind of stuff because we want to maybe change things up a bit. If you have ideas you want to see us do on the show, like, feel free, leave us some feedback. We're always open to it. So thank you once again. Episode 400 done.